High on the 855-meter peak of the Swabian Alb, Burg Hohenzollern dominates the skyline near Hechingen, Germany. Above its eagle gate, the dynasty's motto, Vom Fels zum Meer, still greets every visitor, a reminder that this story begins and endures in stone. Now picture this, a castle that refused to die. Not once, not twice, but 3 separate times it clawed its way back from ruin. The very name Hohenzollern comes from this mountain, anchoring a dynasty that left its mark on German history. Over nearly 1,000 years, ambition built it, war destroyed it, and vision rebuilt it, again and again. But legends never survive without trials. And in 1423, the mountain faced its first true reckoning, when its proud fortress met a siege unlike any other. Shift the scene to May of 1423, when crisis reached its breaking point. Count Friedrich XII held out against the combined might of the Swabian League of Cities, led by Countess Henriette of Württemberg. What followed wasn't a clash of blades on the walls, but a test of endurance that pushed both the defenders and their fortress to the edge. For 10 relentless months, the crown of all castles in Swabia resisted. Its conical peak made direct assault nearly useless, so the besiegers chose patience. They cut off the roads, sealed the supply lines, and starved the garrison into desperation. Contemporary accounts describe the grim decline: supplies gone, terrible choices made, hunger gnawing away at both strength and resolve. The walls never fell to assault, hunger did. At last, on May 15th, 1423, Friedrich's men surrendered. The victors made their point with ruthless clarity, dismantling the fortress stone by stone until nothing remained but rubble. For Friedrich XII and his line, the loss was devastating. Their power in Swabia collapsed, their influence scattered with the stones of their mountain stronghold. Yet ruin didn't erase the Hohenzollerns. The wreckage became memory, memory became fuel, and history wasn't finished with this peak. Another century, another siege, and another castle still lay ahead. Between 1454 and 1461, a second fortress rose from the mountain where its predecessor had been annihilated. Larger and stronger, it became both a seat of power and a refuge for the Swabian branch of the Hohenzollerns, built with the memory of 1423's destruction still raw. For nearly 2 centuries, it stood as sanctuary and symbol, weathering shifting alliances and rising tensions across the German lands. That stability shattered in the 17th century. When the 30 Years' War erupted in 1618, Hohenzollern became a pawn in Europe's bloodiest conflict. In 1634, Württemberger troops encircled the stronghold, repeating the same grim tactics that had doomed its predecessor. For 9 brutal months, no grand assault came, only starvation, deprivation, and the slow collapse of hope. The fall of the second castle was tied directly to the wider war. That same year, Imperial and Spanish forces triumphed at the Battle of Nördlingen, cementing Habsburg dominance in southern Germany. Hohenzollern's surrender became more than local defeat. It was a political symbol, its stones absorbed into the reshuffling of empires. The fortress passed into Habsburg hands, proof that no citadel, however proud, could stand apart from continental struggles. And yet, one piece endured. The Chapel of St. Michael, a 15th century sanctuary, survived even as towers and walls crumbled around it. That small fragment carried the thread of continuity forward, a medieval heart that would one day be stitched into a very different castle. By the late 1700s, Hohenzollern was rubble scattered on its peak, its military role erased by changing weapons and tactics. But the mountain was never silent for long. The ruins waited like an unfinished canvas, broken stone that still whispered of destiny yet to come. In 1819, Crown Prince Frederick William of Prussia climbed the mountain and walked among Hohenzollern's ruins. What he saw wasn't just broken stone, it stirred what he later called a childhood dream: to see the ancestral stronghold reborn, not as a fortress of war, but as a monument to dynasty and memory. When he became King Frederick William IV, that dream became policy. In 1850, work began on the Third Hohenzollern Castle, a complete reinvention of the site that lasted until 1867. The king would not live to see its completion. That task fell to his brother, the future Kaiser William I. The long construction reflected more than ambition. It marked a dynasty, using stone to celebrate itself at a time when castles were already obsolete. Even the funding carried symbolism. 2/3 came from the Prussian line, 1/3 from the Swabian branch, a financial split that underscored Prussia's dominance while still nodding to their shared origins on this mountain. For the design, Frederick William turned to Friedrich August Stüler, a protégé of Karl Friedrich Schinkel. Stüler didn't rebuild the medieval fortress. He conjured a Gothic revival fantasy. Towering spires, ornate battlements, dramatic silhouettes. It looked like a knight's castle from legend, but it was pure romantic invention. Only St. Michael's Chapel, that survivor of centuries, linked the new vision to the old. Moritz von Prittwitz, a renowned fortifications expert, added his own flourish: a sweeping spiral ramp to the gate. It looked defensive, but by the 1850s, such features were theatre, not necessity. Hohenzollern became a paradox. Walls that looked ready for siege in an age when gunpowder had made such defences meaningless. By 1867, the Third Hohenzollern Castle stood complete. Not a fortress, but a stage set of dynasty, memory, and myth. And soon, within its shadowed halls, one ghostly legend would claim its place in the story. If you've stayed with us this far, you're clearly as fascinated by castles as we are. So pause for a moment, hit subscribe, because like Burg Hohenzollern, these stories survive only if we keep them alive. Within Hohenzollern's shadowed corridors, whispers tell of a pale figure gliding silently through the halls, the White Lady. For centuries, her appearance has been seen as an omen of death in the Hohenzollern line. Some visitors claim sightings, others dismiss her as the kind of legend every great castle collects. What makes her story powerful is how deeply it has been woven into the castle's identity, blurring the line between memory, invention, and performance. The tale most often links her to Countess Kunigunde of Orlamünde, a 14th century noblewoman. Legend says she misunderstood a vow from her suitor, Albrecht the Fair. Believing he would never be free until her children were gone, she killed them, only to realize too late the tragic mistake. Condemned by remorse, she wandered as a restless spirit, her pale form drifting from castle to castle. Yet historians note that Kunigunde died childless, leaving her role in the legend more myth than fact. But myth is exactly what Hohenzollern needed. When Frederick William IV rebuilt the castle in the 19th century, the White Lady became part of its Gothic stage. A haunting gave the romantic fortress a soul, an intangible presence that made stone walls feel alive with drama. Even now, guides tell her story, and visitors linger in stairwells hoping for a glimpse, or at least the chill of her legend. Whether omen, invention, or family myth, she shapes how people experience Hohenzollern. She reminds us that castles are more than towers and battlements. They are theatres for the stories we carry into them. But not every trial here belongs to legend. In the centuries ahead, the mountain would tremble again, this time under forces far more real than ghosts. In the 1970s, Burg Hohenzollern faced not armies or politics, but the raw force of the earth itself. In 1970, a powerful earthquake cracked its walls and shook the foundations of a castle that had stood for more than a century. 8 years later, another tremor struck, deepening the scars. Together, they proved that even a fortress rebuilt with romantic grandeur was no match for nature's unpredictability. Each quake demanded costly repairs, straining the resources of a castle that was both private residence and public monument. To meet those costs, difficult choices followed. Chief among them was the introduction of admission fees, an unpopular step, but a necessary one. Tourism became the castle's lifeline, funding repairs and slowing the erosion of centuries. But tourism is fickle. When visitors decline or expenses rise, projects stall, leaving walls and bastions waiting half restored. Outside support has helped bridge the gap. The German Foundation for Monument Protection and the Circle of Friends of Hohenzollern Castle have repeatedly provided aid, funding projects that might otherwise have been impossible. Their contributions reveal a larger truth. Preservation is a communal effort, held together by family, foundations, and countless private visitors. Yet the struggle never ends. Rising construction costs, fluctuating tourism, and economic shifts mean preservation remains fragile. The castle's trials are no longer sieges of stone and steel, but battles fought through budgets, scaffolding, and vigilance against decay. And it leaves a haunting question. Has Burg Hohenzollern's greatest enemy shifted at last, from war and destruction to time and money themselves? Today, the life of Burg Hohenzollern is no longer measured in wars or sieges, but in the balance of its modern roles. It is at once a private home for the Hohenzollern family, a museum preserving fragile heirlooms, and a destination visited by hundreds of thousands each year. The revenue from those visitors isn't incidental. It is what keeps the walls standing and the treasures safe, ensuring survival after centuries of ruin and renewal. Reaching the castle still demands effort. Cars and buses stop at the mountain's base, forcing guests to either walk the steep 350-meter climb or ride the shuttle up the slope. From the Eagle Gate, an elevator offers a lift into the outer courtyard. But inside, history asserts itself. 25 steps still separate visitors from the museum rooms, a reminder that at Hohenzollern, the past never yields entirely to modern convenience. For those who enter, the castle reveals itself as both spectacle and archive. Photography is allowed in most spaces, but the treasury remains off-limits to cameras. Behind glass rests the crown of Wilhelm II, the last German emperor, a relic that distills the power of an empire into a single glittering symbol. Beyond preservation, the castle thrives as a stage for cultural life. Festivals, concerts, and open-air cinema draw crowds, while the annual Royal Winter Magic transforms its courtyards into a spectacle of lights. These events aren't just entertainment, they fund scaffolding, stonework, and repairs. Popular culture has claimed the castle too. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon and the Gothic thriller A Cure for Wellness. Both used its silhouette, proof that even in the modern age, Hohenzollern commands the imagination. Every shuttle ride, ticket purchase, and guided tour now forms part of the castle's survival. Hohenzollern endures not only through dynasties and rulers, but through visitors themselves. Each climb up the mountain, carrying its story a little further into the future. Burg Hohenzollern is more than stone on a peak. It is a story of ambition, ruin, and return. Rebuilt 3 times, never forgotten, it stands as a monument to resilience and memory carved into rock. For 1,000 years, this mountain has echoed with battles, devotion, and legend beneath its towers. So I want to know, which part of Hohenzollern's story grips you most? The sieges, the rebuilds, or the ghostly White Lady? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more castles where history refuses to die, make sure to subscribe. Because the climb may be steep, but at the summit, the past is still waiting.